Good afternoon and welcome to our weekly COVID-19 updates for the town of Plymouth. I'm Steve Triffletti, your Plymouth Town Moderator, and we'll be here each Wednesday at noon for this update. This is number 66, and it's being brought to you live by PAC TV on Comcast, channels 13 and 15, and Verizon, channels 43 and 47. You can also watch this on PAC TV's streaming channel by going to pactv.org/live. Today, for your questions, please email plymouthinfo@pactv.org. These forums can be replayed at pactv.org/Plymouth. Today, Ken Tavares, Matt Muratore, and I will be joined by Dr. Mark Wilson, Sarah Cloud, Dr. Stacy Rogers, Michelle Bratti, and Amy Naples. And at this time, we're going to begin and welcome the chair of the Plymouth Select Board, Ken Tavares. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you, Steve, and good afternoon to everyone. The board held its weekly meeting last night. As a matter of fact, we met for 4.5 hours, and I can guarantee you that the work of the town is continuing. But as far as in relation to anything to do with the virus, the board did request of the Board of Health that we meet once a month with them in a full session. The Board of Health has been extremely busy, extremely cooperative with the health director, of course, and the board itself. So we think it'll be very beneficial for us to meet once a month and have a public meeting. This way, if there are questions or concerns, we can discuss them publicly. We're also going to be moving ahead with the OSHA position that we received at the spring town meeting. This is a very important position. The town manager is now looking for someone to fill that position. Also, we have asked the Board of Health Director, Keane, to sit in on the department head meetings that take place each Monday. Our concern is that there'd be a good flow of information without any hiccups in between. And I do want you to know that people are working at Town Hall extremely hard. The departments, the employees, people that are in DPW, fire, police, are doing an extremely great job, and we're very, very proud of them in this community. That's it, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth Tavares. He is chair of the Plymouth Select Board. We want everyone to know that we're going to continue to do this each week, and next week our lineup will include Dr. Philip Triffletti. He is the attending physician at Beth Israel Deaconess. Also, Dr. Barry Potvin. He is professor emeritus at Yeshiva University, Department of Biology, and also the chair of the Plymouth Board of Health. We'll also be having a representative school department nurse leader, Carilyn, who will be joining us. Michael Jackman is the district director for our congressman's office, and also Heather Cosby is CPA. They'll all be joining Kenneth Tavares, Matt Muratore, and me at this. And we're going to be continuing with our COVID updates and also inviting all of you to send your questions to plymouthinfo@pactv.org. Each day when we are live.
We're going to have to just have the voice for a minute while we restart.
All right, and we are going to be having voice over at this time for our participants while we restart Zoom. So we're going to continue with Dr. Mark Wilson. Mark, good afternoon.
Thanks very much, Steve, and greetings to everyone. Let me start with some questions that I've been asked recently. The first one is, with all of the planning that has gone into having students return to school, including colleges and universities, why is there still concern that this will lead to a new spike in COVID cases? We all agree that everyone wants things to return to normal as much as possible. We all know that children and young adults need to return to their education and socialization experiences. However, the challenges to learning in a classroom are enormous because, as we all know, silent transmission is ever present. So we now know quite a bit about this virus, including how it behaves in individual people and how it is transmitted among us. But even the best of science can't guarantee complete safety for students returning to our schools. I'm really less equipped to talk about our local schools. Others on the panel here are better at that. But I've been following the different ways that public schools, colleges, and universities in particular have tried to address this risk. And strangely, the diversity of plans have been developed in a way that sort of creates the opportunity for comparison among different approaches. And I know a lot of people are doing that right now. But I wanted to offer a few thoughts about the challenges in reopening education. One issue is to keep in mind that plans aren't always followed and people don't always do what they've been asked to do. This is no surprise to any of us, I'm sure. This doesn't mean, though, that the plans were flawed or in some way in error, rather that they may not have been implemented as designed and therefore probably won't be optimal. We already have a number of examples in the Commonwealth and throughout the US where this has happened in ways that have challenged the return to school and produced unexpected outcomes, really, unfortunate unexpected outcomes. This is why we have to remain flexible and forgiving in the face of uncertainty and the challenging conditions that we are now dealing with. Secondly, even though we now know a lot about the characteristics of the COVID virus, we're constantly learning and being surprised by how it behaves in different people, as well as how it's transmitted, when and to whom. So as our understanding develops, our prevention recommendations must evolve as well. And so this is why we should really anticipate that the recommendations and plans will change as new scientific understanding is produced. The third comment I have here is that our forecast models aren't always correct, and they are being fine-tuned and updated as new information becomes available. We need to keep this in mind. The information and assumptions that have gone into these models for reopening, whether it be schools or stores or sports venues or any activity involving groups, they're developed with the most up-to-date information, but that changes as we learn more. So for this reason, we need to expect that public health recommendations are going to evolve and also realize that the very best science is being used to make policies that are aimed at reducing everyone's risk. So for these reasons, we need to, again, continue to be tolerant, adaptable, and conscientious of others as we all work through these difficult times. Next, I'd like to share a couple of news reports that recently appeared and comment on them. Here's one question in regard to a recent news report. Can you explain why the CDC has just reversed one of its testing guidelines for people without COVID-19 symptoms? So the CDC recently published new recommendations suggesting that anyone who has had close contact with someone with the coronavirus does not need to get tested if they have no symptoms. This new recommendation really astounded researchers and public health workers because it seemed to be totally inconsistent with science-based policy on how to reduce coronavirus spread. So some investigative reporting has suggested that this change was made by the recommendation of political appointees of the Trump administration, and that it skipped the CDC usual rigorous scientific review. Objections to this recommendation then led to a complete reversal by CDC, and the new recommendation now clearly states that exposed but asymptomatic people, quote, do need a test, end quote. And this is really welcome news for public health experts, for the public's health as well, because it's really consistent with scientific research on how transmission occurs. We know from several studies that people can really efficiently spread the virus even if they do not have any symptoms. And of course, this is why we regularly wear masks. We don't know if we are infectious. And in fact, some research has actually suggested that we are actually more likely to infect others starting around a day or two before the onset of symptoms. This is part of the scary part of this transmission process. This is when the viral load can actually be at the highest. So because this asymptomatic transmission is what's driving the pandemic, widespread and accessible testing is really crucial. And this is why we should encourage more people to get tested and not less, and especially if you've been around someone who later has shown to be infected. That said, remember that it takes a while, for a few days usually, for the virus to replicate enough for it to be detected in a test. It's really unfortunate that the highly respected CDC is being influenced by political forces that are not allowing science to determine policy, but this is the current era that we're living in. The bottom line, though, is if you suspect that you've been exposed, even if you don't have symptoms, get tested. So another question that I received is, there was a recent report in the news discussing new information about how COVID virus is being transmitted. I thought that we already knew that the virus is airborne. So the origin of this question is that last Friday, the CDC also updated its website on how COVID-19 spreads. And so for the first time, they mentioned aerosols, which are these very tiny particles that can remain airborne for hours, and they travel well beyond the 6 feet that we're all familiar with. Most of us think of transmission occurring through what we call droplets, which are much larger particles that are ejected when we normally talk, laugh, cough, sneeze. And most of these droplets are large enough to quickly fall to the ground, unless they land on someone first, and eventually they pose very little risk. Aerosols, however, are these very small particles. They're less than 5 microns in diameter. And they're produced when people, again, talk or sneeze, but also when these droplet liquid particles evaporate. That liquid evaporates, and this leaves these viral particles as aerosols. And they can remain in the air for many hours. So the CDC acknowledged the importance of aerosols by stating that, quote, these particles can be inhaled into the mouth, nose, airways, and lungs and cause infection, end quote. And they ended the statement with, quote, this is thought to be the main way that the virus spreads, end quote. And this was, again, confusing to many of scientists who are following mode of transmission. And so 2 days ago, the CDC removed this information from the website, explaining that aerosol transmission, quote, does not reflect our current state of knowledge. So what is our current state of knowledge at this point? These fine particle aerosol transmission of COVID virus, it's been recognized for many months, really, by scientists. And the risk of transmission via aerosol versus droplet really depends on the context in which you're active. Aerosol transmission is much less likely when people are out of doors or in a well-ventilated room. And with colder temperatures now, we will be spending more time indoors, possibly increasing the importance of aerosol transmission in our schools, offices, and shopping areas. And so this is all the more reason why we should wear masks when indoors in groups, but also make efforts to have the maximum possible ventilation and filtration of air in those settings. Finally, then, this one more question, if I may. I've already had COVID and now test positive for antibodies. Do I still need to wear a mask and practice social distancing? This is a really interesting and complicated question, and there aren't any simple answers, but here are some things to consider. First, you may not have actually been infected with COVID virus because the symptoms vary enormously. And we know that nearly half of those infections are totally inapparent with no or few symptoms at all. So since many other symptoms are similar to those that are caused by COVID, coming from other viruses or other bacteria, it's possible that what you thought was a COVID infection was not. Secondly, the antibody test that would suggest past COVID infection is not always accurate. And so it may produce a false positive result. In other words, you could have a positive result for antibodies that really is not true. You don't have antibodies. This could give you a false sense of security and an inaccurate belief that you won't be able to infect others when in fact you still may be able to. Third, we still don't know enough about whether or not people can be reinfected a second time. even though most of the evidence indicates that this is unlikely or rare. So for all these reasons, it might be better to continue social distancing and wearing masks when around others, even if you think you have been infected. And maybe most importantly, perhaps, is the fact that we wear masks to protect others as a form of really social responsibility and respect for others. So even if there is evidence that you've been infected and are not at risk to others, most other people aren't going to know this. And so you'll be seen as violating an increasingly accepted social norm and even encouraging others to ignore public health recommendations. So in the near term, I feel that everyone should continue these prevention practices no matter what you believe about your own personal history and risk. So I'll stop there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions from viewers later on in the program.
Thank you, and that's Dr. Mark Wilson. He'll be here to answer your questions. Send them to PlymouthInfo@pactv.org. And at this time, we welcome back Sarah Cloud. She's the Director of Behavioral Health and Social Work at Beth Israel Deaconess. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Steve. Hello to everybody. My little segment today is going to be on living in a constant state of uncertainty, but I feel a lot less uncertain after hearing that clarification from Dr. Wilson. So thank you. So, I just want to acknowledge that life has always been full of uncertainty. That in itself is not new. But what is new is that the collective magnitude of the level of uncertainty that we've all been experiencing over a prolonged period of time. And it's kind of unique in our lifetime to have this level of uncertainty. So the pandemic has really heightened the uncertainty over a lot of categories in our life, including information about the disease, as Dr. Wilson has highlighted, the economy and employment, finances, school schedules. I mean, that was at least one of the things that was something that we could always rely on was, the kids went back to school in the fall. But also relationships, uncertainty around physical and mental health. So as human beings, we are hardwired to seek the security of feeling safe and having a sense of control over our lives. Fear and anxiety leaves us feeling stressed, anxious, powerless, and at times hopeless. And while many things remain outside our control, our mindset or our frame of mind is key to coping with difficult circumstances and the unknown. So I just wanted to highlight and share a few steps we can take to address that and to cope better. So one thing is that we can focus on controlling things that are under our control. And so the first part of that is being able to sort through what is under our control and what's not under our control. And so, for example, we don't have control over maybe our health status. But we do have control over washing our hands, avoiding crowds, wearing masks, and maybe even seek testing when we're exposed. And by focusing on the aspects of the problem that we can control in this way, we'll switch from kind of an ineffective, exhausting state of worrying to active problem solving and taking control over what we have available to us. Another strategy is to focus on the present. I find that that's probably one of the hardest things to do that I'm talking about today. One way that we can avoid worrying about the future is by staying here in the present. So instead of trying to focus on predicting what might happen, we can look at what's happening right now and fully connect with the present. By doing so, you interrupt those negative assumptions and worst case scenarios that are running away with our mind and with our sanity. We can also learn to purposely focus our attention on the present through mindfulness. So with regular practice, mindfulness can help change our preoccupation with future worries to stronger appreciate the present moment. This can also help calm our mind, ease our stress, and boost our overall mood. And also want to add that reducing your anxiety and stress levels through mindfulness can also be coupled with exercise, striking the right balance between sleep, news and social media intake, and also remembering that everything in moderation is best, especially when it comes to food and alcohol. And lastly, being kind and gentle with ourselves, our loved ones, and even strangers will help us and others get through this drawn-out period of uncertainty. Thank you.
Thank you. And that is Sarah Cloud, and she is the Director of Behavioral Health at Beth Israel Deaconess. And this time we once again welcome back Dr. Stacy Rogers for our education segment. She is the Director of Special Education for Plymouth Public Schools. Welcome, Stacy.
Hi, Steve. How are you? Thanks for having me back. I wanted to just take a few moments to let our audience know that we are very happy to announce that we welcomed our students and staff back last week. It was really great to see everybody back in the buildings. The kids and teachers were all very happy to see each other. And things have been going really, really well. So we're getting used to our new normal with our social distancing and our mask wearing. It's really nice to see the kids individualizing their masks with Spider-Man and mermaids and things like that. So that's been nice to see in our hallways. I will say that the students have been super diligent about following all the rules. I know that that was a parent concern very early on about what happens if a student takes his or her mask off and how will we be dealing with that at the school level. But I'll say I've been in each and every building since the start of the school year, and the kids are taking this very, very seriously. And we've had very few issues with kids going outside of the rules with regard to either mask wearing or walking down the hallway in a certain direction. They're maintaining social distancing. And although things are very different for us, things are going really, really well. Our teachers are also working extra hard, especially with the addition of our remote Monday. So we had our first remote Monday just this past week. And that also went really, really well. We did have some tech glitches, but we're working through that with our families. And I would encourage families to reach out to their building administrators if they're having trouble with any logons or passwords, or if they haven't heard from a teacher. And you can always go to our website as well. There's a lot of information. I want to thank our tech directors, Julia Colby and Alan McLean, for all the work that they've been doing behind the scenes. And then also, I think I mentioned this, but definitely reach out to your building level administrators if you have questions or concerns. We also started up our remote academy a couple weeks ago, and that remote academy is for our families who, for a lot of different reasons, have chosen to stay fully remote for this school year. That is also going really, really well. I want to thank you to the teachers who have volunteered for that assignment. It was a huge learning curve for all of us to kind of get that up and running and started. And again, despite a few technology glitches and a little bit of a learning curve, we've heard a lot of very positive feedback from the community with regard to the students who are remote learning with us this year. And if you have questions about that, again, feel free to reach out to your building level administrators. We are working with our technology department. This is a question that's come up quite a bit for us with regard to a one-to-one device model. So we're happy to announce that we're close to getting some additional Chromebooks into the district, and we will be working on deployment of those Chromebooks very soon. They have to be asset tagged and inventoried in the district before we can do that. But I know a lot of our families are struggling with technology in the home, or whether or not they have a good internet connection. So know that we are working on that behind the scenes, and that we will be getting those out to families as soon as they arrive in the district and we inventory them here. So we're looking forward to working collaboratively with families this year. We know that this is an unusual year for us, and we hope that we're not in this model for too much longer. But we're ready to stay the course and maintain a great educational experience and model for the entire district throughout the year should the virus continue to wreak havoc on us. But we're here to try to help and support any of our families, so please don't hesitate to reach out. We'll try to get you the help and support that you need, whether it be for lunches or technology, or just help in the home with regard to trying to provide your child with any kind of educational need that they might need.
Rogers, she's the Director of Special Education at Plymouth Public Schools, and she'll be here along with the other members of our panel to answer your questions. Email us at plymouthinfo@pactv.org. And at this time, we welcome back once again Michelle Bratti. She is the Director of Elder Affairs for the town of Plymouth. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. Hello, Steve, PAC TV, panel friends, and Plymouth community. Thanks again for having me as a guest. I want to share some exciting events that have taken place during the last week at Cal and in our community. Cal celebrated the first proclaimed Senior Appreciation Day on September 15th, and honestly, it was a huge success. In partnership with BID, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Plymouth Phil, we had an excellent few days celebrating the seniors in our town. We had a 3-stop parade route that began at Cal, proceeded to BID, and ended at the Chamber. Music was playing, balloons were flying, and we all came together to honor the hardest hit pandemic group. We were honored to have as guests State Representative Muratore, Senator Moran, Select Board Chair Ken Tavares, and Select Board Member Patrick Flaherty at our center to cheer on our seniors and hand out gift bags. Seniors received a raffle ticket, and thanks to the hard work of our chamber, there were amazing raffle prizes donated along with area business discounts. We would like to take the opportunity to thank the Phil, Anna's Restaurant, Mamma Mia's, the 99, BID, Cupcake Charlie's, Old Colony Elder Services, the Center for Active Living, who donated 2 Bridgewater State University senior scholarships, the Plymouth Chamber of Commerce, Windermere, 3 Daughters Jewelry, Cabby Shack, and Cork and Table for their contributions to our first annual Senior Appreciation Day. The same evening, the Plymouth Phil performed a senior serenade at 2 of our Plymouth housing units and concluded the serenade on September 17th at 2 more housing units. Our community needs to know that this event not only touched our seniors and put a much needed and deserved smile on their faces, but it did the same for all of us that created this and attended this event. Our select board signed a formal proclamation declaring September 15th of every year Senior Appreciation Day in Plymouth. We are so grateful for their support. I do want to read quickly in part what that proclamation says, because I think seniors should and the community should hear it. It says, whereas 2020 is a year recorded as a global pandemic known as the COVID-19 virus, and senior citizens are known to be statistically at higher health risk for this virus, and due to this increased risk, in order to safely protect themselves, senior citizens are more socially isolated. And the town of Plymouth and Select Board acknowledge the sacrifices made by its elder population during this time. And the town of Plymouth, Select Board, and Center for Active Living endorses the Cal mission. The town of Plymouth and Select Board honors and respects its senior citizens for their strength, resiliency, and hope during said pandemic. And the town of Plymouth and Select Board expresses its appreciation for and celebrates the senior citizens of Plymouth on September 15th. Thank you again for this. In other exciting news, Cal opened its doors, well, our side door anyways, for our first phase limited indoor programming. The main portion of the building does remain closed, but in conjunction with our vast virtual programming choices and outdoor programming, we are offering one vital program a day in our large multi-purpose room. We're offering several exercise classes that include yoga and mindfulness, along with a much needed and sought after art class on Fridays. We've worked each day of programming to perfect our COVID safety protocol system and are pleased with the protocols we have in place. Seniors have been super patient during this time, and we appreciate their support greatly. Cal staff couldn't be happier to see those masked, smiling faces, and I would be lying if I didn't tell you that there were a few happy dances on both sides. Our staff created a video to show seniors exactly what our new protocols look like and what to expect entering our building. Please go to our Facebook page or the Center for Active Living page on the town website to view that video and review all of our safety protocols for our new indoor programming. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's Michelle Bratti. She's the Director of Elder Affairs for the town of Plymouth. You can send her your questions to plymouthinfo@pactv.org. Now we move to our business segment. We welcome Amy Naples. She is Executive Director for the Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, Steve. Great to see you and great to see the fellow panelists. It's always a pleasure to be here. It has been such a great week with the Chamber. First and foremost, it was an absolute pleasure being a part of the Senior Appreciation Parade. It was so great to see all the smiling faces and the sincere appreciation from each of the cars that pulled up. It was such a great day for our team and one that will certainly be remembered. So I just want to send a huge congratulations to my friend Michelle Bratti for making this a reality and bringing our amazing community and organizational partners together to celebrate the seniors in our community. Also this past week, we held our Cruise Night and Waterfront Pop-Up. Both were awesome events for our community and local businesses. The restaurants and shops were very busy during the hours of the events. So it was a great way for us to stimulate our local economy and support our local artisans. All artisans did very well at the pop-up, and they were so appreciative to have a marketplace to sell and showcase their goods. We're hopeful that we can do some more of those great events to support those local businesses and very important artisans in our community. Today, the weather is warming up and continues to do so into the weekend and is so great for outdoor dining. Many businesses have been preparing for the colder months, but I think we are lucky that we're going to have some warmer weather this week. So we certainly encourage you to get out there. So many businesses have ordered the heaters and making it great warmer options for the outdoors. I have dined in and experienced the outdoor heaters, and it's been very comfortable eating outdoors. In addition, many restaurants and retailers have been preparing and have purchased air quality purifiers or upgraded their units to ensure the safety of their patrons. So I just felt that it was important to note that. We know the fall and winter months are going to be really challenging, and we're fearful of the temperatures dropping and the impact this has on the industry, particularly the restaurants. However, the Chamber, along with our partners, are working on various ideas to assist with this, including some fun activities for the community, COVID-ready programs to ensure our community and business owners are providing a safe atmosphere for their customers. And speaking of the restaurant industry, restaurant owners have been very busy advocating for aid and relief, and Governor Baker today reported during a news brief that restaurants will soon be able to seat more people at a table. An increase by 4 will allow for 10 people to dine together. In addition, he'll open up bar seating and only for food service. So patrons will be allowed to sit at the bars, not stand, and of course, social distancing will be required between the parties. This change will go into effect on Monday. So I thought that was an important note to add in case you have not heard that from the governor as of yet. As always, my job is to ensure our businesses remain open, give tourists a safe place to visit, and allow the sidewalk dining rooms to remain open and safe for patrons. And I have to say the mandatory mask district is offering a tremendous aid in these efforts. I'm very happy to report that mandatory mask signs are throughout the town and very, very visible. 200, in fact, were installed by yours truly. So we're happy to see those up, and the feedback from our business community has been so positive, as well as our residents. I have to note that while putting up the signs, we had over 30 people stop to tell us they were so happy to see these signs going up, that they totally supported the mask mandate, and they were so happy to see the town taking a proactive approach to keep America's hometown safe. So I think that's good feedback to share with you all. I only had one negative comment the entire time while installing these signs for hours. So out of all 31, that's a pretty good average. So I do believe this is a great step in ensuring the health of our community and our local economy. And we are happy to say that there has been an uptick in business recently and since the mandate was adopted. Excuse me. Lastly, I did want to mention there was an article in the Oak Colony Memorial last week regarding redevelopment plans for Village Landing Marketplace. I have been in touch with all of the businesses located in Village Landing and assisting them with spreading the word that they are alive and well. The article focused on permits pulled by the owner and the plans for redevelopment of Village Landing. He, however, has commented that this is Plan B for him and has no intention of breaking leases or displacing any of these great tenants. As you know, Village Landing has become a very vibrant marketplace, and there are so many wonderful shops and restaurants. Since the article was published, these businesses have been fielding phone calls of concern that their favorite shop or restaurant could be closing. This is not the case, and we strongly encourage the community to support these businesses because after news like this, they need it. We must rally together as our amazing community does and ensure they remain open and supported. And it is our job at the Chamber to support our small businesses, and my team is so passionate about it because they are our friends and the fabric of our community. So as always, I ask you for your support to this business community. Think twice about where you spend your money and support our friends, neighbors, and family because we must keep the vibrancy of small businesses alive in Plymouth. So please help us spread the word. And that is my update for today, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you. That is Amy Naples. She's the Executive Director, Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce. Please send your questions, plymouthinfo@pactv.org. And now at this time of our presentation, we welcome our Plymouth State Representative, Matthew Muratore. Matt, in listening to Amy, sounds like there's quite a bit going on at the state level with the governor, at least as to the restaurants and bars.
Yeah, that was great news to hear. We've been anticipating that for some time now. I was actually kind of surprised it actually occurred this morning. I thought it was going to come out in a couple of weeks, but I was glad that that's going to take place as of Monday. So that's some good news. What Michelle had to say with regard to the seniors, it was actually it was a thrill to actually be there and be outside and see the seniors. And thank you, Michelle, for putting that together. But it was just good to see people all together. I think we were just as thrilled as probably they were too. So it was really great thing. Kristen and I actually went out to dinner the other night as well, Amy, for the first time in Plymouth. And it was, Saturday night was a little chilly night, but we went to a place that had heaters, and it was fine. It really was. A lot of people were out, so we were distance apart with four of us away from other tables, but it was good. So there is life coming back. So let's talk a little quickly about the numbers. So when we look at the numbers from last Wednesday to this Wednesday, we've had an additional 2,000 plus confirmed cases. So we're now up to 125,866 confirmed cases as of yesterday. We've had, since last Wednesday, another 100 deaths. So we're at 9,118 deaths. But the 7-day rolling average for confirmed cases is still at 0.8%. So we are doing fantastic here in the Commonwealth. With regard to the total number of testing, last week we're at 1.98 million cases, individuals tested. We are now over 2.1 million individuals that have tested. Overall, though, the overall tests that have been done have been over 3.4 million tests that have been done. With regard to hospitals, has been a slight increase in hospitals in the Commonwealth. Last week, I think we were at 343. We're at now 371 cases as of yesterday. And right here in BID, actually BID went down from last week to this week slightly. They were at 23 last week, confirmed or suspected cases, to down to 22 this week. And the number in the ICU is at 3 at this point. So it's pretty status quo. Plymouth County went up slightly with last week was 9,400 cases. This week it's 9,550, up to 9,550 cases. It was 753 deaths last Wednesday. We're now up to 762 deaths in Plymouth County. And what I did, Steve, I also looked at Plymouth a little bit. Just looked at some of the details with Plymouth. We're now, as of yesterday, at 677 cases. 688 confirmed cases here in Plymouth, with 76 deaths. But what I did was I looked at the last 3 months, going back to June, just to see the age ranges and what we've been looking at. And it's interesting to see when you look in June from folks between the ages of 11 and 20, it was only 2%. But then when you go to July, it was 39%, August 15%, and September so far has been 10%. So then you look at the ages of 21 to 30. In the month of June, it was 13%. July was 13%. August was 12%. And the month of September so far is 30%. So that is jumping up. When you look at the age group of 31 to 40, it was 0% in June, 0% in July, 12% in August, and now 20% in the month of September so far. And the same goes on when you look at the ages of 41 to 50. When we first started the show, Steve, if you remember, we were talking about somewhere around 80 to 90% of those that were getting confirmed cases of COVID-19 were over the age of 60, and majority of them were over the age of 70 and 80. And now we're just seeing the reverse happening. And we're seeing less people over the age of 70 and 80 getting COVID-19, and more of the younger folks getting it. So there is somewhat a concern. It's good to see that, Amy and the chamber have been out there and putting signs out. And as Dr. Wilson said, wearing the mask is the way to do it. And we need to continue to go in that way. And it's actually good to see that the schools are actually opening. Kids are wearing masks, they're getting it now. But I think the younger generation or the younger population, we just need to continue to stress that about wearing masks. And the last thing I wanted to bring up, Steve, is the unemployment rate here in Massachusetts has dropped down to 11.3%, still high. Before this, it was running around 3%. But we are the 6th highest in the United States right now for unemployment. So as we continue to open up the economy more and more, hopefully we'll start seeing that number go down. And there's still a deadlock in Washington with regard to additional funding for health for small businesses and for people in unemployment. But I'm confident that at some point, it may not be before the election, maybe after the election, but we'll see some federal funding coming our way. And that's today, Steve.
Thank you, and that is Matthew Muratore. He is a Plymouth State representative, and he'll be joining the rest of our panel to answer your questions. At this time, what we do each time with our presentations is we go back through our panel. They've all had a chance to listen to each other, and we ask them to give us their final thoughts as we wrap up. And we're going to begin, as we did, with Dr. Mark Wilson, who is an epidemiologist. Mark, what are your thoughts?
One theme that struck me in the exchanges that we just had is how we're responding to the challenges of uncertainty and the unknown. And Sarah reminded us to try and take control over what we can and do what we can to reduce stress. That's really important. Dr. Rogers reported on how students are willingly being responsible in reducing risk in the school setting. Michelle described how senior citizens are being recognized, helped, and really provided with hope in a sense. Amy's report that the mandatory mask signage is being very well received. That this is another indication of how considerate our community members are of each other. And so despite all of this uncertainty and stress, there are many signs of how strong and considerate Plymouth residents are. And I'm just so pleased to be part of this community.
Thank you, Dr. Mark Wilson, and he's not only an excellent speaker, also a good listener. Thank you for that recap. And at this time, we're going to go to Sarah Cloud, Director of Behavioral Health. Sarah, what would be a takeaway today from
That's
today?
challenging to follow. I think he did a nice job wrapping that all up. So I just want to add to what Dr. Wilson said by just acknowledging that we're all different in how much uncertainty we can tolerate in life. Some people seem to enjoy risk-taking and living unpredictable lives, while others find the randomness of life deeply distressing. So we all have our limits. And if you're feeling overwhelmed by uncertainty or worry, it's important to know you're not alone. We're in this together. It's okay not to be okay. Please reach out for support, both within your friend and with your families, with your colleagues, but also outside of that, reach out for help when you need it. Make sure that you stay safe, and we'll get through this. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's Sarah Cloud. She's Director of Behavioral Health at Beth Israel Deaconess in Plymouth. Dr. Stacy Rogers is the Director of Special Education for the Plymouth Public Schools. Stacy, we know that parents and students know how to communicate with the schools. What if a member of the Plymouth community observes something and they would like to contact the Plymouth Public Schools regarding a concern? What would be the best way for them to follow up with their concern?
I would say they could reach out to, again, the building principal is probably the best person to field those concerns. They could also reach out to me in my new role as the Assistant Superintendent of Schools. My email address is srogers@plymouth.k12.ma.us, and I can try to answer any questions that they might have.
Thank you. And that's Dr. Stacy Rogers, Director of Special Education at Plymouth Public Schools. We're going to move now to Kenneth Tavares. Ken, we don't have Pearl Sears with us today, and I'm not sure if this is a question you can answer, but the question was, a caller, Karen writes, my parents mailed their request for absentee ballots on July 20. They have still not received them. She would be concerned, and I can share with that caller that we also, my wife and I, mailed our request some time ago. We've not yet received them. Can we assume that that is normal and that eventually the clerk will be sending them out, or the Secretary of State? And if you can unmute yourself, Ken, and we'll listen. Thank you. Okay, it's Ken Tavares. He's Chair of the Select Board.
Sorry about that.
There you go. Thank you.
The response to that is we are waiting for the ballots to come in from the Secretary of State's office. As soon as they come in, the staff in the town clerk's office will be sending out the ballots. They just have not arrived yet, or if they have, they must have come in. They could have come in today. But we're waiting, for the printed ballots, and then as soon as they come in, they will be sent out.
Thank you.
The clerk is very responsive and understands the time constraints that she has.
Thank you. And that's Ken Tavares. He is Chair of the Select Board, responding to a question we received from viewer Karen. You can send your questions to PlymouthInfo@pactv.org. We're going to continue with our panel. Michelle Bratti, what would be a takeaway for you today?
Oh, thanks, Steve. Well, just in a little bit of follow-up to that last question, I would like people to know I do not have a date yet, but I will make sure everyone knows. The Center for Active Living is hosting Pearl Sears, our town clerk, on a show that will be happening shortly within the next few weeks. So people can understand exactly the voting process and how it looks today with all of the different choices. So I want not only the community, but our seniors to know that we will be doing a show specifically on that. Also, I'd like seniors to know that we will be holding a drive-through flu clinic on Wednesday, October 7th from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. We've heard from many seniors in our community that they may not feel completely comfortable going to a pharmacy or doctor's office to receive their flu shot. And this will give them an opportunity to get this very important vaccine without leaving their vehicles. The drive-through clinic will take place at the Center for Active Living in our parking lot at 44 Nook Road and is being conducted by Osco Drug Company, which many of you may be familiar with as the pharmacy associated with Shaw's Supermarkets. So we stay tuned for that. People want that, and we want to make sure we provide that for our community. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Michelle Bratti is Director of Elder Affairs for the town of Plymouth. We now go to Amy Naples, Executive Director, Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce. Amy, your thoughts?
It's always such great information shared by all of the panelists. But today in closing, I wanted to mention, certainly we spend a lot of time advocating for small businesses, offering advice and assisting with critical needs. But in addition, we do offer great networking opportunities and educational programs, virtual webinars. So there are so many topics that we cover. So I did want to mention that. In addition, we work with the SBA and our partners at SCORE to provide very important and timely webinars. So for a complete list, you can visit plymouthchamber.com. Certainly reach out to me anytime at 508-830-1620, or you can stay up to date on all of the happening in a more timely fashion by following us on Facebook and Instagram at Plymouth Chamber of Commerce. So thank you again for having me today.
Thank you. Amy Naples, Executive Director of Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce. We now return to our Plymouth State Representative, Matthew Muratore. Matt, how would you like to close today?
Well, Sarah triggered something for me too. We need to still keep in mind that there are people out there that are still struggling with substance use disorder as well. The numbers are actually on the rise. With COVID, it seems to have taken a back seat, but we need to keep it in the forefront. Here in Plymouth, we're fortunate to have 3 different groups that are still out there, actively working, having Zoom meetings on a number of different occasions. So let's just keep that in mind, and we'll continue to work on that as well. And with regard to this panelist, it's great to have everyone together again and talking about the future. It is getting brighter, but we still have to continue working together to get to the end game. So thanks again for having me, Steve, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Thank you to Matt Muratore, a Plymouth State Representative, and to all of our panel. Dr. Mark Wilson, he's the active professor emeritus, University of Michigan School of Public Health. Also to Sarah Cloud, she's Director of Behavioral Health at Beth Israel Deaconess in Plymouth. Dr. Stacy Rogers, Director of Special Education, Plymouth Public Schools. Michelle Bratti, Director of Elder Affairs for the town of Plymouth. Amy Naples, Executive Director, Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce. Next Wednesday, we'll be joined by Dr. Philip Triffletti. He is an attending physician at Beth Israel Deaconess. Dr. Barry Potvin, he is the Chair of the Board of Health. Will also be joined by the Plymouth Public Schools nurse leader, Carilyn, along with Michael Jackman. He is district director for our Congressman. Heather Cosby, she is a Plymouth CPA, and of course, Matthew Muratore. And now we circle back to the chair of the Select Board, Kenneth Tavares. Ken, your closing thoughts.
I have a couple that I'd like to share with the audience, and some good news. Tomorrow, the Select Board will be meeting at 10 o'clock on the town green in front of the courthouse to receive a check from the county commissioners. As everyone, I think, knows by now, the county sought federal funds, got them, and is distributing them to the various towns in Plymouth County. And we are going to be on the green tomorrow to take a check that's going to be close to $595,000. This will be extremely helpful in our fiscal planning. We're very pleased about that. Also, I'd like to remind the community that there's some exciting things going on North Street. Last week, Muratore and I and other officials did a very short but significant ribbon cutting at the Art Guild. And the president of the Art Guild announced that the art show was opening the following day. And if you need a rest and be able to exercise your mind in a pleasant way, attend the show. I'm also pleased with this panel today and the optimism that we have. Dr. Wilson, thank you for the common sense remarks that you made, as well as the other members of the panel. I actually come away thinking that, we are making progress. Nothing is happening by chance. There are good people making good progress. So thank you to everyone in this community that has been participating. I think if we follow the advice of sane people, we'll beat it. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, and that's Kenneth Tavares. He is chair of the Plymouth Select Board. Also want to thank Julie Thompson, Executive Director for PAC TV, for her and her staff supporting us each and every week for these COVID-19 updates for the town of Plymouth. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Please return and join us next Wednesday at noon. We'll continue with our panels. I'm Steve Triffletti, Plymouth Town Moderator. Good day, and thank you.
Bye.